here, bringing you the IM3-6-1 Extra Practice Number 4 solutions on simplifying rational expressions. And there's a puzzle that goes with this one. Let's check it out. So here's the puzzle that goes with that extra practice. For this one, we actually have two riddles we're trying to solve. We're trying to solve the riddle, what do you call a skydiver with the flu? And we're also trying to solve a completely unrelated one, how do you crash a houseboat party? So the idea here is we have these 14 different rational expressions that we have to factor out possibly and simplify. And we just have to match the answer with one of the letters to the right of the whatever problem set we're dealing with. And whatever letter we get, we put that in the spot corresponding with the problem number. So, for example, let's say I do number 1 and I get this A over here. I don't think that's the answer, but let's say I did. Then I would go ahead and spot number 1 and put an A right there. And also this one. There's multiple for some of these. So that's the idea. Let's go through and see what we get. Okay, so here we go with our first problem. For this one and all the ones that follow, we're first going to factor out as much as we can, and then we'll cross off common factors, reduce things, whatever we need to do. So for this one, taking a look at my numerator first, x plus 3, I can't really factor that at all, so I'll just leave it. In the denominator, there's multiple levels of factoring I can do. As a general rule, if my terms are going in kind of opposite order here, like I would like to have the x squared first and then the 9, what I can do to change that is factor out a negative 1. So if I take out a negative 1, this negative x squared is now a positive x squared, and this positive 9 is now a negative 9. So you can basically switch the order of subtraction by factoring out a negative 1. And we're going to do that over and over again on this puzzle. All right, so let's keep going. This x squared minus 9, I think I can factor that a little bit more. So let me leave the numerator the way it is. I've still got a negative 1 down there. And now I can factor this using my plus minus square root shortcut. So the square root of x squared is x. Square root of 9 is 3. So we've got x plus 3 and x minus 3. And at this point, I notice that these x plus 3's can cancel out. So what I've got left then, for the whole fraction now, since I have this negative 1 right here, I can make this whole fraction negative. And then I still have a 1 left over, even though I crossed off everything else in the numerator. And in the denominator, I just have this x minus 3. So looking for negative 1 over x minus 3, that's choice R right here. So let me go over to spot number 1, and we have an R going there, and another R going down here in the other spot number 1. For this problem, I'm going to do a little factoring in the beginning. Now it looks like this numerator, things are a little bit out of order. I want to reverse the order of that subtraction so I can factor it easier. So I'll take out a negative 1 in my numerator. And then I have positive x squared minus 49. X minus 7 still in the denominator. So for my numerator, I can bring down the negative 1. And I can split that up into x plus 7, the square root of 49, and x minus 7. X minus 7's are canceling, so all that's left over is a negative 1 and an x plus 7. I could distribute that out if I wanted to, but just looking over at my answer choices, I notice I actually have negative x, or negative parentheses, x plus 7 right here, choice H, so there's no need to distribute that. So let me put an H in spot number 2, and there's only one of those that's right there. For this problem, let me start by factoring out my numerator and denominator. For my numerator, I have a common factor of 5 that I can pull out of there. So if I do that, I'm left with x and minus 4. In the denominator, I would just like to change the order of subtraction. So I'll factor out a negative 1. Now that leaves me with a positive x minus 4. I notice I've got these x minus 4's that cancel. And then 5 over negative 1, that just divides out to negative 5. So that's going to be a right there. And that goes with spot 3 right here, so there's an A. And there's another spot 3 actually down here, so another A. On this problem, before I can factor my numerator, I'm actually going to want to take a negative 1 out of all that. So if I do that, that leaves me with an x squared minus 8x plus 12. X minus 2 can stay the way it is in the denominator. So let me bring that x minus 2 down, because I'm going to do some more factoring upstairs. I've still got the negative 1 there. But now I also can break this up. I need factors of 12 that add up to negative 8. So 1 and 12 doesn't work. 2 and 6 works if they're both negative. So I can split that up into x minus 2 and x minus 6. These x minus 2's can cancel. So that leaves me with just negative 1 parentheses x minus 6, or negative parentheses x minus 6, which is this top choice over here, n. So I'm going to put that in spot 4, which going through here, it looks like that's at the very end. On this problem, I'm going to start by factoring out my numerator. So I need factors of negative 15 that add up to negative 2. 1 and 15 doesn't work, but 3 and 5 does. Positive 5, negative, or positive 3 rather, negative 5. So x plus 3, x minus 5. For my denominator, I'm going to do two things at once. I notice that I can take out a common factor of 2 from both of these. I also want to reverse the order of my subtraction. So I'm actually going to take a negative 2 out of all that. So that turns this negative 2x into a positive 1x, and this positive 10 into a minus 5. So I notice that actually works out pretty nicely because these x minus 5's are canceling. So what I have left over then, I'm going to take the negative from this negative 2 and apply that to the whole fraction. So this whole fraction is negative. I have an x plus 3 upstairs, and downstairs I just have that 2 left over now. So negative x plus 3 over 2, that's going to be right here, choice E. So that's going in spot 5, so right there, and also down below right here. To get me started on this one, I'm going to take out a negative 1 from my numerator just to make the rest of that a little easier to factor. So doing that, I end up with positive x squared minus 8x plus 16. And while I'm taking out common factors, my denominator could probably lose a few things there. Let me take out a 3x from all of that. That leaves me with a positive x minus 4. And going a little bit further, for my denominator, let me just keep that around. My numerator I can break up a bit more. I've got the negative 1 still. And also, if I'm looking for things that I can factor this into, I've actually got two perfect squares, x squared and 16. So if I use my perfect square shortcut, so square root both of those with the squared parentheses, I've got the square root of x squared, which is x. Square root of 16 is 4. We have a negative middle term, so negative 4, and then the whole thing squared. Just to double check, if I do x times negative 4 and double that, I do get negative 8x, so that does actually work. And at this point, let me cancel out some things. So I have an x minus 4 upstairs and downstairs that I can cancel, but I have two of these x minus 4's. So to represent this, I'm just going to cross off the 2 here, and this whole x minus 4 down here. And now we see that I just have one of these x minus 4's left over. So I've got this negative from the negative 1. I'm going to make the whole fraction negative to keep that around. Now I just have an x minus 4 in my numerator, and I have a 3x in the denominator. I can find all of this stuff down here at the bottom with choice I. So that's going in spot number 6. So there's a 6 over here. That gets an I. And scanning through here, I see another 6 at the very end. So another I over there. For number 7, it looks like we have two parts to this fraction that are a little bit out of order. So to make this first thing up here a positive x squared, I'm going to take out a negative 1. And I'm actually going to do the same thing in the denominator to change the order of subtraction into something a little nicer. So numerator first, take out a negative 1. I've got positive x squared plus 3x minus 10. And in the denominator, taking out another negative 1, we now have a positive x squared minus 25. Let me go a little bit further. So I've got the negative 1 in the numerator that I already took out, and now I need for the stuff in here factors of negative 10 that add up to 3. 1 and 10 doesn't work, but 2 and 5 works. Negative 2 and positive 5. So I'll write x minus 2, x plus 5. And now for x squared minus 25, after I bring down this negative 1 here, this is a perfect square shortcut. I can square root both of those and use a plus minus parentheses. Square root of x squared is x. Square root of 25 is 5, so x plus 5 and x minus 5. Negative 1's can cancel. And then we have x plus 5 and x plus 5 also cancels. So all that's left when the dust settles is an x minus 2 over x minus 5. And then that's going to be, where is that going to be? This is similar, but yes, actually J is the one I want. I was going to say O looks kind of similar, but not quite. We're going with J. That's going to be 7. Let's see, here's a 7, and I don't see any other 7s, so we're done and we move on. All right, here we go with number 8. For this one, my numerator's looking like I could change the order of all that. So let me take a -1 out of all that stuff. That leaves me with a positive c squared plus 5c minus 6. And then for my denominator, I can definitely take a 7 out of both of those. So that's going to be c squared minus 1 down there. Continuing on, I've got the -1 I brought out already. And for the stuff inside, I need factors of -6 that add up to 5. 1 and 6 works if I have -1 and positive 6. So c minus 1 and c plus 6. And down here, we've got the 7 that we already brought down. And this is one of my plus-minus shortcuts here. Square root of c squared is c. Square root of 1 is 1. So c plus 1, c minus 1. These c minus 1s cancel. So, and this -1 here, I'm just going to take that out and make the whole fraction negative. So we have a negative on the outside. We have a c plus 6 upstairs. And downstairs, we still have a 7 and a c plus 1. And let me see if I can find that. It looks like that's going to be this t over here. So we've got 8 is going to be t, and this 8 down here as well. For this problem, let me begin by taking a -1 out of my numerator. So that'll be positive c squared inside there, minus 6c plus 9. And then denominator, I'm just going to keep that the way it is for now. And now for this next step, I'm actually going to break things down further. So up here, for my numerator, this is a perfect square sandwich, so let me try the a minus b squared shortcut. We've got the -1 still. Square root of c squared is c. Square root of 9 is 3. And the middle term's negative, so I'll write -3 whole thing squared. And if I multiply c and -3 together and double it, I do get -6, c, so I'm good on that score. Now for the denominator, I need factors of 24 that add up to 5. So let's see, 1 and 24 doesn't work, 2 and 12 doesn't work, 3 and 8 works if I have -3 and positive 8. So I'll write c minus 3, c plus 8. And this c minus 3 can cancel one of the c minus 3's up here. So let me just cross off this 2. Now there's only one of them left. This -1 can come out for the whole fraction and make it negative. And then all that's left in my numerator is just c minus 3. Denominator, just c plus 8. And if I can find that over on the left here, it looks like we've got k is where it's at. So this was number 9, so there we go, k for 9. K9, there we go. So on this problem, we see a definite jump in the difficulty level. Let me start by factoring out my numerator. For that one, it looks like I can take out a negative for sure. I'd also like to take out a 5 because of the 10 and the 5. And I can also take out a c squared. So -5c squared coming out of everything. And then that leaves me for my first term now. That'll be a 2 and a c left over there. And if I take that out of -5c squared, that's a positive 1. All right, now for my denominator. For this one, there's no easy way to do this. You either have to use guess and check, or you can use the AC method. I'm going to go with AC method. It's a little more systematic. So 2 times 7 gives me an AC value of 14. So I'm looking for factors of 14 that add up to this middle term of 15. 1 and 14 works. That was pretty easy to find. So I'm going to split up this middle term into a plus 1c and a plus 14c. And now since I've got 4 terms, I can use factoring by grouping. For my first 2 terms, I can take out a c. That leaves me with 2c plus 1, which looks kind of familiar, and there's a reason for that we'll see in a moment, no pun intended. The last 2 terms I can take out a 7, leaves me with 2c plus 1. So 2c plus 1 is our common factor coming out of all that. C plus 7 is my leftovers going in. So I can put all of that in my denominator now of this fraction because I just factored all that. And it looks like this 2c plus 1 is going to cancel. That's pretty nice. So cleaning up the mess here, this negative from the numerator can make the whole fraction negative. Now I just have a 5c squared up there and a c plus 7 downstairs. And it looks like I've got all that with this u right here. So number 10 is going to be u, so a u for u. And you get a u. And you get a u. All right, we're all set with that one. Number 11 is kind of, I don't know if they're trying to apologize after that last problem we had to do. This one's pretty straightforward. C squared minus d squared, this is basically like a squared minus b squared. Just your plus minus square root shortcut. So we've got c plus d and c minus d. And then the c plus d that was in the denominator is already there. Doesn't need parentheses, but whatever. So we can cancel out those c plus d's. And that leaves us with just c minus d. And I feel like there's got to be a trick here somewhere, but what you see really is what you get. That's going to be this c right here. So number 11 then is c. So we actually get a c here and another one over here. Usually these quicker ones, you don't get to use them twice, but hey, we'll take what we can get. Well, with number 12, the honeymoon is officially over. We're back to these tricky problems again. So let me take a negative 1 out of my numerator. That'll give me c squared minus 2cd minus 3d squared. And there's nothing else I can take out of there. All those letters, but they don't all three have the same letter. For my denominator, I can definitely take a 5 out of both of those, and that's actually it. So that leaves me with a c minus 3d. Okay, let me factor the stuff inside my numerator now. So we've got the negative 1 still there. And for this conglomeration of things, I'm basically looking for factors of negative 3 that add up to negative 2. And when I find them, I'm just also going to have to put a d on whatever those numbers were. So multiplies to negative 3, adds up to negative 2. That would be positive 1 and negative 3. So let me write c plus 1d and c minus 3d. And then the denominator stays the same. Well, this actually works out pretty well. The c minus 3d's are going away. This negative here can come out for the whole fraction. So all that's left in my numerator now, we got a c plus d, and downstairs we have a 5. That's going to be this s over here, and that's going in spot 12. So we've got a s going over here, and then another s going down in this other spot down here. All right, on to lucky number 13 here. So let me start by factoring this top expression. It looks like for common factors, I can take out a c and a d, and that's about as good as it gets. So if I do that, I'm left with just a single c for that first term. The next term, the 4 is still hanging around, along with a d. And now for the denominator, I'm going to at least take out a negative 1 from all that. So that leaves me with c squared minus 16d squared. So I can't really do much more from my numerator. I'll just leave that as is. But my denominator now, along with this negative 1 I took out, it looks like we've got a difference of 2 perfect squares in there. So square rooting and using my plus minus shortcut, square root of 16 or of c squared is going to be c. Square root of 16d squared is going to be 4d. So I have c plus 4d and c minus 4d. c plus 4d's are canceling. So this negative 1, I'll take that out as a negative for the whole fraction. And I've got a cd in the numerator, c minus 4d in the denominator. And looking over here, it looks like that's going to be a g for that answer. So that's going to be spot 13. All right, here we go, last problem. This one I'm going to be taking some negatives out of both parts of the fraction. For my numerator, there's a little bit more than a negative 1 that I can take out. I can also take out a 3 and a c. So negative 3c leaves me with positive c minus 2d. The c's cancel there. From my denominator, let me just take out a negative 1. I can't really do any better than that. Leaves me with a 3c squared minus 7cd plus 2d squared. Now for my denominator, I'm going to use the AC method to factor that a little further. So AC of 6, 3 times 2. And then I need factors of 6 that multiply to negative 7. Well, 1 and 6, or adds up to negative 7, I should say. 1 and 6 does the job if I have both negatives. So I'm going to split this negative 7 CD up into a negative 1 CD minus 6 CD. Now that I have 4 terms, let me use some grouping. First 2 terms, I can take out a C. leaves me with 3c minus d. For the next two terms, let me take out a negative, a 2, and a d. So that leaves me with a positive 3c. The d's cancel, so 3c is left. And then for this one, this is going to be a negative d. The 2's cancel. D squared divided by d is just d. So 3c minus d comes out. C minus 2d goes in. I'll put all that now instead of this stuff that I had there originally. And now looking for common factors, I can definitely cancel these c minus 2d's along with these negatives out here, those negative ones. And then I've got a c and a 3 left in the numerator, so 3c. Denominator, all that's left is a 3c minus d. 3c's can't cancel because we don't have multiplication with this 3c going on. So that's as good as it gets. And that is choice B, so number 14 is a B. Now that I've filled in all my letters, let me parse this apart to see if I can answer these riddles. So riddle number 1, what do you call a skydiver with the flu? And here we have A, S-I-C-K, that's sick, and then shooter, like a parachuter. But a sick shooter, that sounds like an old style gun from the Wild West, right? So a little play on words there. Next one, how do you crash a houseboat party? We have J-U-S-T, so just, and then we have barge in. Just barge in, like a barge that's floating, right? Okay, till next time, Mr. Sutton signing off.